Last time on Big Data and Brews, Stefan talked with Justin Borgman, the CEO of Hadapt.
We are basically building an analytical database on top of Hadoop.
He explained some of the newer features of Hadapt.
And then we just introduced a feature in version 2 of our software back in September that we call schemaless SQL, which is basically the ability to query semi-structured data like JSON or XML, so key value data.
Okay.
And you can query that directly.
He also talked about some customer use cases.
What they do is they take point of sale data from restaurants and bars, and they take the receipt data, the check data, and they basically use that data and analyze that data to determine the best waitstaff in the restaurant and the bar.
Now for more Big Data and Brews.
Welcome back to Big Data and Brews with Justin from Hadapt. Thanks for bringing delicious gluten-free beer. It's very refreshing. It has a nice
pleasure.
Caramel taste. So is wine gluten? Yeah,
Wine is gluten-free. A lot of hard alcohol, so I drink Scotch, believe it or not. That works fine. Yep.
Somehow Boston and Scotch is
They go together, you think?
yeah. You know, it seems like classic, and nice old town.
Yeah, this is true.
Good. What's your company culture like? So a little bit international sounds like, yeah?
It is, actually. I think we have a pretty diverse crew just by virtue of kind of how we started and the folks that were involved. So, I mentioned we have that sort of Polish presence and...
You half German, you said?
Right, half German myself.
Good.
Yep.
Good.
Yep.
Can you do a German poem now?
Oh, man,
Maybe
I'm too embarrassed.
Christmas song, German Christmas song.
No, I don't. Not today.
No, okay.
I'd have to drink a lot more of this.
Okay, good. Well, next time we will do karaoke.
Oh God.
So, help me. How are you building your company? Where are you recruiting your folks? Are they straight out of the universities, or is it a good mix? And how do you, as you grow as a company, maintain kind of that company, culture and value? It's something maybe not struggling with, but that's certainly something I think about a lot as you grow a company. How you keep that. Those 5 guys that initially founded the company that hacked all night, and how you keep that?
Yeah. So to answer your question, we recruit, I think, from multiple sources, but certainly with my co-founder Daniel continuing to be a professor at Yale.
He's just fishing the best guys out there, huh?
He kind of is. Yeah. I shouldn't give away all our secrets, but that's right. So we
note to self, hire professor.
Yeah, it helps. It helps. So we've had some great people come out of Yale. But also, I think just being in Boston, we can pull from sort of Netezza and Vertica and Deca and these other database companies that have all been acquired in the last couple of years. So
it's not as much fun to work for one of the big guys.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's been great, and we have a good mix of both very senior people that have built database products, and also more junior people that just have a lot of energy and can do those all-nighters and all that kind of thing. But culturally, I think for us, it's been an interesting evolution, as a matter of fact, because when we began, we were so academic and research oriented by virtue of coming out of the university that. I think we've sort of professionalized a lot more over time. We're not as much focused on I guess all the research papers and all of the sort of different elegant aspects of the architecture as much as let's build production quality code and ship it and get things done. So I think that's changed a little bit. But we still have a ton of fun. It's a very close-knit community. It's sort of an open floor plan that we have in our office. So we all get in each other's business, and it's a lot of fun.
And drink scotch together.
Yeah. Well, we actually have a couple kegs on tap at all times.
Yeah.
So that works well for the non-gluten-free people. They can enjoy that. Yeah.
That is nice. Well, we actually don't. It was very funny. We just hired this woman from another company, and she's like, wow, you guys definitely a lean startup. My last company paid more in booze per month than you pay for this and this tools. Something she said. And like, well, we still heavily party as a company, and we have a great time and great culture, but no kegs.
No kegs.
No.
Yeah.
But yeah. I wonder how beer drinking and coding helps. So actually,
We've had some interesting debates in the office on this topic, but
Actually, Eric Gamma, the guy that co-authored JUnit, once on a meetup in the mid-90s when I was involved in Eclipse, sat in front of the whole gang, drinking beer and hacking all night long. Well, never drink and code except you do test first development. So I thought it was very funny. Obviously, pushing his JUnit back then was pretty innovative stuff. So.
Absolutely.
Anyhow, okay. So, Justin, what's coming next in the market? What do you think? Like, what's the future in big data? Obviously, it's SQL. Sounds like.
Yes.
Yeah, but what do you think are some of the trends that you're keeping a close eye on? Is it the in-memory stuff? Is it, do we need to do more on the file system area? Is it more kind of the access? What do you think is the next thing?
Yeah, great question. I think certainly all of those are interesting areas. In-memory certainly has its place. I think some of the things that we're most interested in and keeping an eye on is this notion of, you sort of have Hadoop. Again, I'll draw my bad handwriting.
You didn't saw mine yet.
And you've got HDFS in here, and very often people are using this as a landing environment, a data reservoir, data lake.
Yeah.
Pick your favorite word, right?
Yeah.
And then ultimately they're doing some ETL, and they use Hadoop as effectively fancy ETL, and then they push it into a database, a traditional database. Maybe that's Teradata or what have you. And so we're constantly focused on increasingly what is driving people to actually kind of skip this step. Right. And leave that data in here, and what's missing to kind of prevent that, because that's the ultimate kind of future we believe in. Anyway, certainly we founded the company on that of doing all of your analytics in one place in this data reservoir, and so some interesting things there we think are making ETL a thing of the past to a certain degree. I mean,
we're on the same page here.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's one area where we keep an eye on, things that we invest in from an IP perspective to try to make that easier, make that more accessible. Certainly our vision is effectively bringing database technology into Hadoop, and that's sort of what Hadapt is all about. So, continuing to watch that. Also watching what the rest of the ecosystem is doing from a maturity around resource management with Yarn, but also security. Increasingly as Hadoop goes production in major enterprise customers, these are the kinds of things that aren't always the sexy things that the engineers are like, this is great, but you have to build it anyways. So that's also something we pay attention
security.
To.
We see a lot.
Yeah.
Are there, to come back to kind of that observation, because we see that too, right? So that Hadoop becomes the melting pot for all the data, but then if it's valuable insights, people still pushing into databases.
Right.
Why do you think is this? Is that because you have a BI system sitting on top of the database that's working well, that's maybe already integrated, or are people just feeling more comfortable having data clean and structured? Because you could argue, hey, I just land all the data in there, and instead of cleaning the data, transforming the data, I just do a view of the data, right? So kind of the view concept from databases, where my view is the cleaning of the data. And the advantage would be if I change my mind what clean data means, I would just change the view, right? Aren't we at the point that we have enough storage and compute to handle everything as a view?
Right. I mean, I certainly believe that's coming, and hopefully not too far away. But I think the challenge still for a lot of people is that these sort of existing legacy platforms have so much functionality already built into them that Hadoop hasn't been able to duplicate yet. And to your point, BI tools is one common way that people want to interact with that data, and these tools don't work perfectly seamlessly with Hadoop yet today. Things like doing deletes or updates for that matter.
And you guys do that? Deletes and updates?
Not yet, but very shortly. I mean, that's something that we're working on. And again, something that we think we'll be able to implement much more quickly, given our kind of DBMS component of our architecture than the open source vendors that are trying to reinvent the wheel, to your point earlier. So...
and you guys then have a mix of C++ and Java code in your platform?
We do, yeah. And C also. I mean, C in the database being,
okay. That's a fun environment.
Yep.
So how you guys handle that? Do you have like integration tests or
a lot of tests? We spend a lot of money on testing.
We too.
When I look at the budget, it's like and it's always getting bigger. It seems.
We pay easily $10,000 a month on AWS just to test against all the different Hadoop versions, right? And then you have vendor A version 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have vendor B version, and so on. So and we have to test against all of them.
Yeah.
Because we have to run all the different versions on the market. So
I wish we were spending only $10,000. I'm embarrassed to even say how much we're spending
on AWS.
On AWS, we have colos as well that we use, but we do a lot of scale testing. We have to, right? So we have to spin up 100 nodes at a time, make sure everything's working at scale. And
well, that's a good thing with us. We just trust that Hadoop scales. Right?
Okay.
We don't do anything on the Hadoop layer, right? For Hadoop, for us, we kind of the Switzerland of Hadoop world, right? We sit on top of like everybody, basically, right?
Yeah.
And we hope they do a good job. So
right.
So okay, good. I'm glad you're testing and scaling.
Yes, lots of testing.
Okay, cool. What makes a successful big data project in companies? We see in the beginning you had kind of the one change agent, the one tech guy that brought it in, and it was kind of more grassroots, kind of agile, fast-moving project in companies. And then matured, where we now more and more seeing big companies hiring a VP of big data, and then they spend the next 12 months and $5 million on experimenting with all different technologies to eventually come up what the right tool set for the company might be. What's your view on kind of what's the best practices to enroll a big data project in companies?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And certainly we see that as well, as you described. I think the ones we find to be the most effective is where a business unit has a very specific problem and they're saying, I need this to be solved, and it really is a big data problem.
Right.
And then hopefully you've got somebody that's sort of progressive and forward thinking on the IT side that says, hey, Hadoop would be a great answer for this. To give an example, and I can't mention the company's name, we were joking earlier that financial services companies tend to be more conservative about letting you use their name, but we have a large insurance company that works with us that implemented an e-discovery use case, actually using the search capabilities of our platform. And that was a case where they had a very burning need. They needed to be able to scale, to handle massive amounts of emails and documents and so forth. And there were some very enterprising folks on the IT side that said, hey, this is something that I think we could solve with Hadoop. It would really allow us to scale cost effectively going forward. So, increasingly we see that, and those are the kinds of opportunities we try to qualify for. When I'm sort of teaching, or telling the sales guys what we want to do, right? It's how can we find things that are really business motivated, where we're going to add value, as opposed to more of the science projects, which I think you're talking about as well. Yeah.
They seem to be very painful for the companies, but they're always realizing that when they already did the 12 months, $5 million science project, and also they're painful for us, right? I mean, if you entertain them. So that's an interesting one. So e-discovery, do you have more use cases around that with the search technology? I guess that's beautiful. Is that going into that more kind of Lucene style?
It is. Effectively, it's a distributed Lucene implementation that we integrated into our query engine. So our query engine, and this is another thing that I think differentiates us from, let's say, some of the things that Cloudera is doing on top of their distribution. Everything we do is sort of integrated through one unified interface. So while Cloudera has search and they've got Impala and they've got Hive, and these are three different interfaces, three different projects.
And they juggle 9 different,
Exactly. Everything we do is through one unified interface. So through SQL, you can actually submit a search query.
Nice.
And
you use Lucene for this?
We do.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've worked on a distributed Lucene indexing technology before. You're using Solar, or
we do. Yeah, we use Solar, and we made it, of course, fault tolerant and sort of adhered all of the Hadoop lessons to that. But that's exactly right.
So, what is what's the use case you most proud of with your technology, right? So we had this use case where an Olympic team used our product and they changed their training schedule based on insights they found. Do you have something fun, like out of the university research world?
Yeah. It's a fun use case. I really like that restaurant example that I think I gave, before. That's a good question.
They help to find the best cheesecake to eat.
Well, who's selling the most, right?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of an interesting use case, and it's one that you can easily talk to people about, at a cocktail party. I don't know if you find this a challenge, but I certainly do. How do you explain to normal people what you do? You know, as soon as I say Hadoop, it's kind of crash and burn for the average person, right?
Yeah.
If you're in a tech geek, maybe it's easier out here in Silicon Valley, probably.
It is a little bit.
Yeah.
But if my parents ask, "What do you do?" Did you ever use Microsoft Excel? And they usually say yes, right?
Yeah.
So it depends on what. If it's a cocktail party, they say yes. If you're at the dive bar, sometimes they say no. But then, for us, we can go from, okay, did you ever use Microsoft Excel? Well, great. Well, think about Excel on steroids. That's what we do, right? So that's an easy one for us, at least.
Yeah.
It's just, a lot of data. And then, people understanding use cases usually, right? So that's the fun part.
Same here. I mean, that's how I try to explain it.
Yeah.
In the early days, I remember, I'd always start with, do you know what Hadoop is? And they wouldn't. And then I go into that and they get bored.
They usually say Gesundheit.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
So where's the company going next? So, you're building out international teams. Are you solely focused on the US market at this point? Like, help me. Where are you guys going next? What's from a product, from a company? Kind of more an entrepreneur question.
Sure. So we've been very focused on the U.S. today, and we're certainly now starting to scale the business. So focused on how can we get more of this software out there, get more people using it, and so starting to scale those business elements of the company. We've certainly had international interest, but just to try to constrain our own resources and be diligent about our focus, we haven't engaged too much internationally yet. But that's something we may also do in 2014.
Yeah, great. What's the biggest misconception in the big data world about Hadoop?
About Hadoop, I think the biggest misconception is that it is slow. And yes, it is slow and batch oriented today in a lot of respects, but that I think people believe it's inherently so, and therefore can't really fulfill this vision we were talking about earlier of being the analytical platform. And I think that misconception will hopefully erode over time as people see this ecosystem, and vendors hopefully like Hadapt as well, continuing to improve that and reduce that latency, making things more interactive. Yarn and Hadoop 2.0, and even some of the advancements that that the Stinger initiative is working on. All of these are interesting from the perspective of making Hadoop more interactive, and it really isn't some inherent sort of flaw to Hadoop. So I think that's a big one, and then also using Hadoop as purely just like a storage platform, cheap storage, right? Which seems to be one of the first use cases we see from a production perspective, anyways. And I think viewing it as just sort of a cheap storage that ultimately feeds into a database, I think that concept will continue to dissipate as well and converge. Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Well, maybe as a last question, any good recommendation you can give for entrepreneurs that want to get into the data space? Obviously, they shouldn't do another SQL and Hadoop thing.
No, we've got plenty.
Yeah. What would be your recommendation? What would you do if you now would join the big data crowd as an entrepreneur? What's the direction people should take?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think there's still interesting things going on, certainly in the visualization space. Anything we can do to make this easier, this platform easier. I think also ETL is an interesting opportunity here. And then I think there's a lot of room in terms of just building big data applications on these stacks. So we've got a lot of infrastructure vendors now that have been funded over the last 3 or 4 years. But building more kind of vertical applications, I think there's a lot of opportunities to do interesting things there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Justin, well, this was fun. Thank you.
Yeah.
And thanks for the new gluten-free beer experience. My
pleasure.
I will definitely keep an eye on this one. I like it.
You like it? Good.
It's a refreshing. It's nice dark, and it's not too heavy. If you go for a Guinness, you feel you have a couple of beers and want to go to bed.
Right.
You had a full meal or something.
Right.
Well, cheers.
Cheers.
Good to have you, and have fun with the team, and good luck with the company.
I appreciate it. You too.